I'm going to go ahead and proceed. Okay, so as a heads up, I know I mentioned this earlier, but another reminder that we are recording this session. We will post today's session to our department's Careers in Mind website for future reference, but keep in mind as well, just being mindful of your screen. So feel free if you feel more comfortable to remain off screen and muted. Otherwise, you can stay on screen, but please we ask to stay muted so that there's no background noise disruption. I know sometimes that tends to be an accidental thing, so just keeping that in mind. Okay, so next up, we also want to acknowledge the land we are currently on. We want to recognize and honor the native indigenous land that UC San Diego stands on by reciting this land acknowledgement. So UC San Diego community holds great respect for the land and the original people of the area where our campus is located. The university was built on the unceded territory of the Kumeyaay Nation. Today, the Kumeyaay people continue to maintain their political sovereignty and cultural traditions as vital members of the San Diego community. We acknowledge their tremendous contributions to our region and thank them for their stewardship. Thank you. Okay, so a really quick reminder, if you are intending to use this panel session towards your co-curricular record certification, you have to fill out the Careers in Mind May 2023 CCR credit sign-in sheet. We will send it in the Zoom chat. Janice, if you have access to that, please feel free to add it to the chat. Otherwise, we will also try to add it towards the end if we can't find that link as well. As a reminder, this will be used to confirm your participation in today's session. So again, your CCR certification will not be complete if you haven't filled this as a session validation. So please do that. Take some time to fill it out now or when it's offered in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing here and pin our panelists. Let me go ahead and get the gallery here. Thank you so much. Jamie, thank you for being here. Sorry about the access issues. Okay, so I'm going to take some time to introduce our panelists here who so graciously allowed us the opportunity to discuss with them their experiences and support for you all as undergraduate students. So I have the great pleasure of introducing our panelists for this evening. If I can get you all one by one, whatever order you feel comfortable, to just give a quick debrief, your name, your pronouns, if you feel comfortable, your current title, and your current job title. Just to introduce yourselves to the students on this call.
I can go first. I'm Michael Genhardt. I'm a clinical psychologist in San Francisco in private practice. My pronouns are he, his, him, and I also write books for children, which I'm happy to discuss with you in a bit.
Good afternoon, everybody. And forgive me, I'm getting over a cold, so I'm a little bit hoarse. My name is Jamie Edler. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I live in the DC area. Work for the Defense Health Agency, and I am the Deputy Director for Telehealth.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jesse Michelle. Thank you so much for having me. I am currently a manager in the performance psychology division at Deloitte, a consulting tax audit firm. Graduated from UC San Diego in 2006. Proud Roosevelt graduate. I also have a private practice, Mindset for Excellence. My background is in sport and performance psychology, and I live in Tampa. My pronouns are he, him, and his.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here and share space with everyone. Like, we're bringing in some amazing expertise over here. So I'm Dr. Lisette Sanchez. I go by Dr. Lisette. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I guess my official title is a licensed psychologist. And I'm also a founder of a practice called Calathea Wellness, where I provide individual therapy, coaching services, as well as mentorship. And I do have a YouTube channel called The First Gen Psychologist. So shameless plug here. If you're interested in learning more about first gen mental health, I am the First Gen Psychologist on social media. And I also contribute articles to destigmatize Latinx mental health and just first-gen mental health, predominantly with Hip Latina, but sometimes I'll also contribute to like Wondermind and a few other publications. And so my goal is to just making therapy more accessible, destigmatizing mental health. And I'm sure that we all here have a similar goal and value with that. So excited to be here with you all. Oh, and I was also ERC graduated a few years ago. And so very happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Powell. I am a guidance counselor or school counselor here in San Diego. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a UCSD graduate from Marshall. And I work primarily with high school students. We focus on providing mental health support and linkage to community resources for our students and their families. And I also advise heavily in the college application process.
Nice. Thank you all. I know that's a great question, actually, that we might add, just advertising what college you were from. Jamie, I think you're from Revelle.
I am a PA in Revelle from 1981, and did my PhD on the East Coast.
Nice. And then Jesse, I saw you kind of do this with the ERC, so assuming ERC. Nice. And Michael, what college were you in?
I graduated from John Muir in 84.
Nice. Muir is actually the closest college to our psychology advising office. So we're in that neighboring community. Thank you all for taking the time to introduce yourselves. So I'll take the time to go into the next question to start our session. So if can a couple of you or all you, whatever you feel comfortable with, tell us in a few sentences what drew you to your current career. I know some of you shared your titles. If you haven't taken this time to share them now, and just some elements of what drew you to that career.
I'm happy to go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I was pretty lucky. In high school, I took a psychology class and I just loved it. I fell in love with just learning about human nature, and it just felt like a calling. And so that was my major at UCSD. And again, feel very fortunate that I sort of learned early on. And also my parents and grandparents were always into community affairs and helping underrepresented folks. And so I think healing was a big part of it for me as well. And then in terms of writing books for kids, when my daughter was in high school and applying for college, I knew that in addition to my practice, I would have time on my hands. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll dabble with this, not knowing just how hard. It's very hard, but it's so satisfying. And ultimately, I just wanted to reach more kids. I see kids in my practice, but I wanted to see more kids because I wanted to write books that represented underrepresented kids, right, or marginalized folks. So yeah, I just wanted to draw from my identity as a psychologist, but also a gay dad and a kid who grew up in a multicultural family. So I could really share stories with a lot more kids.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. I saw a lot of head nods as you were sharing it. So I think a lot of the themes of helping might resonate with a lot of the other panelists as well.
You know, I want thank you, Jamie.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, Michael, I love how you framed it as being a bit of a calling, because whenever someone asks me this question, I'm like, I just knew that I wanted to do this. I wanted to work in the mental health field, and seeing the disparities, I think firsthand, growing up in a working class family, being first gen, and I was always curious about the mental health and wanting to understand like how my culture, so I'm Latina, I was raised in an immigrant household, parents from Mexico and El Salvador. And I was so curious, and I would hear my mom talk about mental health concerns, but the way they would frame it, they would frame it as, more of the psychosomatic symptoms, the way she would talk to my grandmother about it. And I was like, I want to learn more. I want to delve into this. And so the earliest memory I have, I was in 7th grade telling my 7th grade teacher, I'm going to be a psychologist when I grow up. And she looked at me and she's like, you know what? You have doctor handwriting. And I was like, you know what? I will take that as an encouragement that I'm going to make it. So like, it's all how you interpret that information. So I was like, you're right. I do have doctor handwriting. And so thank goodness for computers though, because like I need that. But yeah, it just felt like a calling. I love what I do. I'm here. And I think every step of the way, I'm constantly figuring out something else that I want to, another message that I want to spread. Right. And so I'm so excited to share that today. If you can't tell how excited I am, I keep saying that.
It's contagious. Thank you.
I guess I'll go. I'll split it in two. One is like when I first started UC San Diego, it was Revell in the 80s, and so I was pre-med like everybody else. And always wanted to be in a helping profession. I thought that was going to be medicine. After about the fourth or fifth OCHEM experiment blew up in my face, I was thinking maybe this wasn't for me. And at the time I took my first real psychology course at UCSD, and I happened to read Skinner's Science and Human Behavior. And something just went on in my head and said, okay, I think I found my profession for my life. Because the notion, it allowed me to kind of combine the two things that I was really interested in, which was helping people and trying to understand why people do the things that they do, and really get a sense of what drives and motivates people, and for good or for ill. And so that just kind of started a love affair with psychology that has gone on to this day. So that's like part one. Part two is, kind of the theme of this particular session, which is, psychology and beyond. So I trained, I became a clinical psychologist, specialized in substance use disorder, worked for the VA, and enjoyed my work with patients, but was frustrated because the folks that I had to deal with had so many things going wrong in their lives, so many counts against them in terms of homelessness, in terms of chronic unemployment, and lack of not only like technical job skills, but social job skills in order to be able to maintain a job, and basic coping strategies. And a lot of them, enormous number of my patients had PTSD, and some of them had serious mental illness. And I figured that, what was my 1 hour a week really going to do in the face of that? And so I began to work on the development of programs that would help large numbers of people to address these different issues, and found that I really had a talent for doing that. And while it didn't allow me as much time to see people individually and develop that sort of really deep therapeutic relationship with them, it allowed me to create tremendous amount of good for a huge amount of people. And I found that that was actually a very satisfying career direction. A little bit later, the technical stuff kind of worked its way in, and it kind of morphed into the development of telehealth capabilities across the globe, starting like with local, and then regional, and then national, and then kind of international. But really, it basically all started out with OCHEM experiments blowing up in my face and reading a really good text on psychology.
I feel like a lot of students will probably resonate. We hear a lot of students who have one idea of what that helping profession is, and then it ends up being something else. And that's just as great as well. Brittany and Jesse, I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add as well to that.
Sure, yeah, I can touch on. I have a similar situation as you, Jamie. I came in as a math major at UCSD. I loved math. And then during my first year taking our general education classes, took a psychology class and fell in love with it, and had switched my major by the end of my first year. And I always had that's kind of, what led to the psychology major. And then I always had grown up working with young kids. I come from a big family. I was always taking care of kids. And I knew I wanted to work with our youth and adolescents in some way, shape, or form. So, after doing a little bit of soul searching and traveling, I caught the travel bug and then figured I would work as a school counselor. I had good experiences with my school counselors in middle school and high school. And I was a first generation college student. I navigated the application process all on my own. It was very overwhelming and complex at the time, trying to figure it out as a 17-year-old kid. And so I wanted to kind of be that level of support for our students, and also just kind of look out for the whole student, mental health especially. That's a big obstacle that we're working through in these past few years. So kind of just navigating the college application side, but also linking families to community resources or underserved families especially has been really rewarding. And that's how I kind of ended up here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brittany. I'll bring it on home. I'll be succinct, like the rest of the panelists. It sounds like we have similar stories where we thought we may do one thing, and then sure enough, by the start of our second year, we're with the rest of the people who didn't do very well or found a different passion, and or at least in my case, it was the not even get to OChem. It was just regular chemistry that when I realized, okay, maybe that path is not for me. My path in terms of my profession is a little bit different, I think, than the other folks in the panel. I mentioned my sport and performance psychology background. I did my PhD at West Virginia in sport and exercise psychology. Then I went to work for the Army for 4 years as a mental performance expert in a program called Comprehensive Soldier and Family Fitness. And I was the mental skills coordinator for the Houston Astros for 5 years. And now I'm with Deloitte. So I think it provides some context in terms of how I'm viewing this panel and maybe the role I can play. The space that I operate in, is the high performance space, and helping performers do what they do best and trust themselves and bring their A game to the field or the executive office or the battlefield. So we do that in a lot of ways, but that's what I do on a daily basis.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing a bit of your journey, how it all started briefly. And I think what I hear a lot, the patterns, the themes of, no career path is linear. And a lot of it actually starts from thinking one way and then ending up in a completely different path or something adjacent. So thank you for validating that. I know that's something that a lot of our students come in advising sessions, constant worrying of, I came in with this idea and it's turning out not to be what I wanted. And so I think just hearing from professionals in their careers now that that's normal is going to be greatly beneficial for them. So thank you for that. I did want to go on to the next stage of it is, I know you all kind of elaborated a bit on your titles, but if you could provide some sort of guidance on or insight on what your favorite part of your career is and what your least favorite part. And with the least favorite, focusing on anything that maybe you had not anticipated about your role or something that was unexpected. And I think this will provide insight to students who are intrigued by the aspects of some of your careers, but not necessarily understand how it can truly pan out. So as a reminder, some of y'all's favorite part of your careers and least favorite part of your career.
I'm happy to start again. I think my favorite part of the clinical work is, of course, the work with the patients and the storytelling element. I think it's important to remember that when you're doing clinical work, it's an extremely intimate experience. And I feel privileged really to be in that space with folks, helping them with obstacles in their lives and elevating strengths and so forth. But it's being in the story, their life story, that I find very rewarding. Similarly, as a storyteller writing books for kids, I get to live with stories. And once you're in that creative space, you're always listening for that next possible story. And the trick is trying to connect the storytelling with your readers, right? Making the stories relatable. What I don't love about the clinical work is the paperwork. Dealing with insurance companies and stuff like that. I have some help with that, but I just don't love that part. And the writing part, I don't know. I think it's sometimes frustrating to figure out how to tell a story that a kid will respond to. So you often sit with a story in this creative space for a long time until sometimes, like a light bulb, it just sort of comes together in the middle of Safeway, or somewhere else where you're not at your desk, you're somewhere else because you've let it digest and you've kind of backed away from it. And yeah, so it can be kind of frustrating, but well worth it.
So I think that for me, the two things that I really enjoy about the work that I do are, one, I kind of mentioned that I'm able to do a lot of good for a lot of people. And so to see the results of that and to see that kind of, as you start a new initiative or you're trying to kind of make the way people are doing things a lot better, and seeing that kind of play out over thousands and thousands and thousands of clients, across the world, really makes you feel like you have made a substantive contribution to something that you've sort of moved the field a little bit further. And I really enjoy working with other professional subject matter experts, people that have just as much zeal and dedication to do this, and so as much of a sense of mission as I do in trying to make this happen for the people that are in our care. And so it's really a privilege to kind of be among those colleagues and to collaborate with them. In terms of the stuff that I don't like, two things, and I'm guessing that Jesse's going to be able to relate to this, but when you work for a big bureaucracy, it is just that. It is a big bureaucracy. And so there are a lot of people that you have to deal with who are procedurally bound. And so procedures are ostensibly set up to help you accomplish certain things. But there are, in large bureaucracies, a lot of people that are in charge of those procedures who see the procedure itself and the fidelity to the procedure as the goal, as opposed to, that is supposed to be in the service of something more substantive. And so it can be very frustrating dealing with those folks. The other piece that is difficult in really large bureaucracies is politics, just personal politics, as people are competing for resources, competing for status, that sort of thing. And for the people that are more mission focused, as opposed to empire building focused, it can be quite frustrating. Now, having said that, when you work in an environment like the one that I'm in, if you learn how to kind of swallow hard and deal with that stuff really well, you can accomplish a lot of good for a lot of people. And so I take it as kind of the cost of doing business, but it's not my favorite part of the job.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and share. I think similarly to Michael, I think we have a lot of similarities. Like I love the human connection of this work. I feel very privileged that the work that I love to do, that I get to do what I love, and the work that I love to do involves helping so many others. And it's very fulfilling. It's a very fulfilling kind of work. And so I think that's my favorite, the connections, whether it's through that very intimate one-on-one therapy session, or the vulnerability when writing something and reaching a larger audience. It's special to me. And I think my philosophy is if something that I do can help one person And if we all could help one person, the world would be a better place, right? And so that'd be my favorite. And one of my pain points is also the documentation. And that's something I think I experience in all settings that I've worked in. When I used to work in the system, when I work for myself, it's just I like the people part, and the paper part is not so fun for me. But the end result is very nice, right? So I don't know, all of you in ERC with those MMW classes, like those, like, I remember they were such a pain to get through, but they did really enhance my skills as a writer, and they and I love the end product of it, and it's so great. It's so special to kind of see it. But yeah, the process of it is just not my favorite. It's my least favorite, but we do it because it's all part of the package.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll hop in here. I appreciate that. Love hearing the other panelists' thoughts. I think for me, and I imagine a lot of folks, both the panelists and students, have been on the other end where someone has given you the gift of hope, or the gift of autonomy, or the gift of some sense of ownership or control, or whatever. Michael's talking about the stories that we tell. I think for me, one of my favorite parts is like not knowing when the aha moment is going to happen. And it's just like such a interesting component of our work that nobody's the same. And, in my experience in the arenas that I tend to play in, sure, there are consistent skills and conversations and strategies and whatnot, but how you get to that point is so different from person to person. And that is really what I value. And, I think this is cliche, but it really is about our clients and patients and athletes and folks that we work with. And sort of, I envision I've equated it to sort of a Sherpa role in a way, right? You're sort of helping somebody find what they want to look for. For me, in addition to what Jamie said about sort of the bureaucracy and the politics, and sure, you have that in big organizations, but I'll be honest, like the travel I have a young family, 2 small kids. I used to travel a lot. And that part sort of stunk. And I just, in full transparency, am a much better husband and father and overall person now that I don't have to travel as much in my current gig. So that was it for me.
All right. And I would say my favorite part of my career is helping our seniors in particular kind of figure out what they want to do after they graduate. Sometimes for our students, it's the big unknown of graduating from high school, not being sure what to do if college isn't really in the picture for various reasons. So linking up, helping our students kind of figure out what their passion might be, and linking them up to potential careers or trade schools that might utilize their strengths in ways that they just weren't aware of. There's so many job training programs out there, trade schools out there that they just might not know about. So helping a student find their purpose after they graduate from high school is probably one of my favorite things. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult than others to kind of just try to hash it out and figure out what barriers they're experiencing and help them figure out ways to overcome those barriers. But that's probably one of my favorite parts. One of the challenges or things that is not so great is probably the documentation, and just kind of making sure that everything is written down that needs to be written down, or when it comes to like scheduling or the more mundane administrative type tasks can be a little bit I'm just excited to get those over with. So
Yes, thank you all for sharing. And I think what's really interesting about it is that you all hold very different titles, and you do obviously very similar work, but it just goes to show that whatever path you end up going to, there's some element of things that you may not look forward to. Documentation, whether it's travel arrangements that are like pulling you at different sides of like location wise. There's just going to be a lot of things that may not be unanticipated, but it also, what it sounds like is there's a lot of the positives that make it all worthwhile. So thank you for sharing a bit of that as well. And I know a lot of students oftentimes struggle visualizing with, pursuing this and seeing one way of it. So it's really helpful to hear how it can, become something else, an idea of something that they thought, an extension of that. So thank you for that. Moving on to the next one is, this year's theme specifically is, creating your career with intention, navigating career with intention. So if a couple of you could kind of just take some time to articulate as you reflect on your career journey. What are certain values and or experiences that mattered most to you and your personal career growth? An extension of that, how do you have an example of how that value or these experiences, how they informed your work identity and how you navigated your career?
I don't mean to always go first, but it's easy to kind of launch a conversation.
Yeah.
Someone good steps up. Anyway, I think for me, the value that I hold dear is humility and respect for what I don't know, right? And being a kind of perpetual student, like in life, having an open mind. I certainly learn. I hope I help my patients. I think I do, but I learn a lot from them as well, a whole lot. And in terms of writing, having that openness to or that humility helped me start writing in my 50s. Right? Who knew that was something? I mean, I certainly didn't plan it, and so having that open mind allowed me to enter a new path that has been so rewarding. I didn't think I'd be, very good at it, but again, being that student and being open to getting help, which I did, helped a lot. And I can't tell you how satisfying that is at this point in my career. So that humility and respect for what I don't know has helped me tremendously.
I'll hop in. I think you can go a lot of ways with this question. It's a good one. And what comes to mind for me, especially, I'm trying to put myself in the student shoes, is this value of sort of get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's cliche, but it's something that's used a lot in some of the arenas that I play in. And it shows up all the time, especially early in career, and trying to figure out, what do you want to do next? And do you want to go to grad school? Do you want to go into the working world? Do you want to, go back home? There's just sort of these times, these big transition points that, are going to be coming if they're not already here. And I just encourage you to lean in to being uncomfortable in a safe place, of course, where you have support. But we talk a lot about taking calculated risks. And so the sooner you can get comfortable being uncomfortable, I think, in terms of career growth and putting opportunities in front of you that you would have never imagined them to be, and collaborations and networking and developing relationships. And it just sort of starts with this sort of seed that's planted that, what, if I'm uncomfortable, it means I'm in the right space, because it's gonna challenge me and encourage me to grow. And that can be really scary at 18, 19, 20, 21. But my guess is that nobody on this panel didn't get outside their comfort zone multiple times early on in their journey.
I want to share that you both have shared really resonates with me, because getting out of your comfort zone, I think, is a big part of what has helped me be successful. But I also think it's a big part of it's a strength for a lot of first gen college students. There's something to be said about needing to navigate many unknown spaces, needing to learn how to be a bit more resourceful early on. And so I wanted to share that, because oftentimes when I talk to folks who have this identity, they view it like as a weakness or as something that they need to overcome, and not really being able to understand the inherent strength that comes with having had that experience. And so I share that because it's my first gen identity that has really pushed me to do so much of what I do day to day. And honestly, it's a big value of mine, or something that's really important to me, is representation. I think about when I was a student, and actually before we started the panel as a panelist, we talked about how wonderful it would have been to have more of these panels when we were students, when we were in school, and how beautiful it is that we are here with you all today. And so that representation piece, that makes me so happy. And I can only imagine what it's going to look like 10 years from now. Even honestly, with the way technology advances, even just 2 years from now, like how much more? Like, I just think of how this was 2 years ago when I first was on a panel. And so, yeah, the taking yourself out of your comfort zone with the support, you don't have to do it alone, right? Leaning onto your strengths, leaning onto your support systems and showing up. And you're all here today, you're showing up and you're learning. And I'm learning so much from my fellow panelists and from you all as well, right? I think some of you have sent me a few DMs. And so thank you for being here, and to my fellow panelists, because yes, this representation matters. People knowing what your options are after college makes such a big difference, especially in this field where there's so many options. There's so much to do with a degree in psychology and a post, I think it was a PhD or a graduate degree. So yeah, I'll stop there.
I think that was great. Very well said. And I think probably what I'm about to say kind of goes along the lines of everyone else in terms of, one of the values or experience that really helped me was just being unafraid to try something new, something out of my comfort zone, and being okay with it not working out, because that is the biggest fear, right? So kind of getting through that in the beginning stages when I first started at my program at my school, there were no school counselors. It was a new school, so I had to develop the entire comprehensive counseling program, and it was my first year as a school counselor. So that was a big undertaking, but it ended up turning out really well. I mean, I think, and we're continuously trying new things, and some things don't work and some things do, and you just kind of figure out what aspects of the thing that didn't work were successful and then building on that. So it's just kind of being flexible and not afraid to fail, which is easier said than done.
So couple of things for me. One, first of all, I always approach what I do reminding myself of who I'm doing this for. And it's about the people that we're charged with serving. It's not, I knew a lot of people in the behavioral health field who did things because they enjoyed doing them. They did a type of therapy because they really got into it, whether or not the objective data would suggest that the patients were getting better, but it was meaningful to them, and they felt like they were doing something substantial. And I constantly remind myself, I'm doing this for the people that I'm charged with serving, and that's the bottom line, is how are they benefiting from this? Are they getting better access? Are they getting better care? Are they getting better? And that's the gold standard. I agree with what everybody here has said in terms of pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. One of the things that I tell people who come to work for me is that if you don't feel for the first 6 months of your job like you made the worst mistake of your career in coming here and that you're totally out of your depth, then you're not doing it right. It literally, sometimes taking that next step is like literally drinking out of a fire hose. And you're wondering, why on earth did somebody hire me to do this? And you don't realize that everybody starts that way. And the only real difference between the people who really succeed and the people that don't, or that the people who succeed take the challenge, run with it, and then, a few months down the road, they've really sort of mastered the basic skills for the job. But like I said, if you're not completely convinced for the first 6 months that you made a huge mistake, you're not doing it right. So I would really encourage you to kind of don't be shy about taking that step. The other thing I would encourage you to realize is that as psychologists, we have incredibly valuable skills in terms of how we listen, in terms of the way we think about what motivates people, and what causes behavior change or what facilitates behavior change, about what sometimes acts as a barrier
Mhm.
to behavior change. I'm thinking in terms of UC San Diego, your knowledge of
Oh, no. We'll give Jamie a couple. Go ahead, Michael.
do you want to invest in one program or another program? And so I with you even at the undergraduate level that you can develop further in graduate school that will serve you well no matter where you go with your degree.
I just want to quickly piggyback on what the wisdom of so many of my fellow panelists and add, I don't think it's about, when it comes to risk taking, I don't think it's about being unafraid. I think it's about being afraid, but doing that thing anyway. It's a disservice, I think, to like, who isn't afraid to do that new thing, right, for the first time? So I think we have this idea that fearless means to be without fear. I think it's about having fear, but doing that thing anyway, and hopefully coming out on the other side thankful that you challenge yourself in that way. So I just wanted to comment that, because otherwise I think we send a message to folks that you shouldn't be anxious,
Mhm.
like there's something wrong if you are. And no, I think that comes with the territory.
Thank you. I think something too with all of these values or the advice that you all have given is the fact that the reality is that these core experiences will motivate you, will continue to support you as you enter new stages in your life, enter new positions, enter new organizations. So that's why we really want to hone in on the idea of creating a career, evolving your career with intention and with goals, with values, because the values are really what are going to inform your either resiliency in the job or your strengths-based mentality, thinking about what you have to offer in every capacity. So thank you for that. At this time, I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So for the students, if you have any questions, feel free to send it in the chat right now so we can address it. I'll give about a couple of seconds or so for the first couple to filter in. Otherwise, there are a couple of questions we still have, but I do want to be mindful of the student voice and allow you all the chance to ask any questions that you may have. Thank you. And you can either put it in the chat right now or raise your hand and go off mute, whatever you feel most comfortable. And it's okay if there are no questions. I'll just proceed to the next one on my list. To prep for the ones that may or may not come in, if I can get a couple of you to maybe speak on some undergraduate resources, whether academic, personal, co-curricular resources that helped you while you navigated your undergraduate career at UCSD, that you want to shout out that helped you during your time as an undergraduate student, and especially maybe even to help you with your realization of the career path that you're currently on. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if they still have, they called them externships when I was an undergrad. And there were opportunities, the Office of Externships, maybe it was called something else, partnered with different agencies throughout the city so that students could have hands-on experiences with different clinical populations. So I did as many as I could, working with autistic kids, with troubled teens, with seniors. It helped me decide, frankly, whether or not to go to grad school, and eliminate or highlight different populations I might want to work with. The other thing I found very rewarding was doing a few independent studies with some of my favorite professors. So I got to be part of their research and learn from the inside how it's done, and also be part of writing papers with them, which helped me with my writing, because you have to be disciplined. Certainly takes discipline to write a master's and a dissertation. So the writing skills help me and continue to help me doing a different kind of writing from the standpoint of discipline. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I mean, I love those ideas. I can remember independent studies and getting involved in, faculty research projects and just trying to find things on campus that I thought aligned well with what at the time I thought my career was going to be, which, by the way, if you think you know what you're going to be doing 10 years from now, that's hysterical. I think for me also, like, I knew that I wanted to get into sport psychology at the time. And so like I went out in the community and coached like random, youth leagues from sports that I didn't know anything about. Right. Like, so trying to figure out ways like what's in the community that you can give back that sort of aligns with your professional values, your personal values, and seek out opportunities. I can only imagine what 20 years later, what those community opportunities would be, and now virtual opportunities as well. So I would encourage you to think outside the box in that respect too.
I'm going to quickly add a few things because I know we're running out of time. So go to office hours, talk to your professors, connect with your professors, ask the questions that you feel are stupid questions. Just talk to your professors, build those relationships. Having those relationships are really helpful, really important. You can also do it through a more structured program like the McNair Scholars Program. I participated in that as an undergrad. And also I talk about office hours. I didn't get comfortable with office hours until graduate school. I did not do it well during undergrad. And then when I would teach, I would tell all my students to come, and I would also, like send them emails because I realized it was so hard for me. I was so intimidated. I was so scared. And so just your professors, most professors, they really want to help you. They really want to support you. They want you to learn. So McNair Oasis was a great resource for me. The TRIO programs they offered there, Student Support Services Program. And I don't know if they still have this there, Melissa, you can maybe tell me, but when I was a student, they had a Dine with the Professor program, and you got to have free lunch and hang out with your professor and get to know them. And I know as a student, I was always looking for my free meal. And so just connect with your professors, find a mentor. How do you ask someone to be your mentor? You can just ask, do you have space to mentor me? Because I kind of like what you're doing and I don't know, I'm lost. You can always ask that way. So and thank you, Janice, for sharing those links in the chat.
I love that. Michael, they still have internships. I believe it's evolved in the way that they allow them, but they still have offer internships here. And Jesse, like you mentioned, it's really important that you do seek out those opportunities that are actually of interest, of like what you're passionate about, especially in the community. I think sometimes students get in the habit of thinking it just has to be on campus, but there's so much to be offered in the community as well. I know there was a question specifically for Brittany. What is a PPS credential, and was it hard and costly to obtain?
Oh, a PPS credential, PPS stands for Pupil and Personnel Services, and it's a specific credential. They have different classifications. I have mine in school counseling. There's also one in social work, school psychology, and it is required to be employed by a public school here in the state of California. I did a joint master's program with a PPS credential through Chapman University in order to earn it. And it was kind of built into the program. So you did your master's classes and then you did your PPS requirements simultaneously.
Thank you, Brittany. And Jamie, I think I see your mic on if you want to add to the previous or any extension of it.
Yeah, I'm noted that Glenda had in the chat has asked
Yes.
we can ask people to mentor us mind blown. I don't know if that's facetious or not, but one thing I would encourage people to do is have a fair amount of chutzpah. And what I mean by that is that, when I was upper division undergrad, I asked the chairman of the department to be my mentor, my undergraduate advisor. Not because he was the chair of the department, but because I was sort of dyed-in-the-wool Skinnerian at that point, and he was B.F. Skinner's #1 student. So this was George Reynolds back in the day, and I asked him to be my mentor, and he said yes because nobody else had the chutzpah to ask him. So there are a lot of very impressive people that are in the department and that you may take classes with. Don't be afraid to reach out to them. I know they're used to working with grad students and stuff like that, but you know, if you show a really strong interest in the work that they're doing and kind of the issues that have come up in shaping their career, and you want to learn from them, a lot of them are more than happy to take you under their wing and help out.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for making that note too, is I think oftentimes it's really taking the time to destigmatize the effort or destigmatize the relationship between the avenues of mentorship, because I do oftentimes find that students are afraid to ask for help or don't even navigate how to approach the aspect of outreach or the aspect of networking. But again, I think, and something that I love that, you know, Dr. Lisette mentioned is, instead of focusing on the aspects of what you think you're lacking, focus on your strengths-based, what you have to offer, like how you can utilize those strengths to make these connections with professors. And those events like dining with the professors really help to normalize professors in the capacity of they're just mentors, like Jamie mentioned, mentors that you can reach out to, folks that are more than happy to help within any capacity. So thank you so much. I think at this stage, if at any point any students have questions, feel free to utilize the panelist bios that were sent to you. The panelists did offer their contact information if you feel comfortable reaching out in that capacity, if you have specific questions about their roles. Otherwise, one last plug for the next couple of events that we have. I'll share my screen here. For more of our upcoming Careers in Mind or departmental events, please visit our department site. We do have a networking session tomorrow with our panelists, with other panelists, a couple of here, otherwise other panelists as well. And for graduating seniors, it is that time of the year for psychology graduating seniors. We are offering our psychology senior send-off. Please feel free to visit us. It's currently on 24th of May, and we're there to celebrate you in this great achievement. I think also other students can come in. This is specifically seniors, the chance that they can grab their grad cords. So keeping that in mind, a reminder to please fill out the Careers in Mind CCR credit sign-in sheet. You should find that later on. We posted it 2 times, I believe. So just scroll through the chat in the very beginning and you should have access to that. If not, we'll add it to this right now. And then just please check out the resources provided by UCSD's Career Center. On top of all the resources that the panelists shared today, the Career Center is doing a lot of great work to provide career development assistance. They often also shout out the resources that the panelists have offered today. So please feel free to visit their website for more information on that. What I can do as well is quickly share all of this that I just sent in the chat. Have this for everyone. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here. At this time, I'll ask the panelists to just stay on quickly for a quick debrief, but for the students, hope to see you tomorrow. And thank you again for being here today. Bye, everyone.